We are looking at compare and contrast essays. We're looking at the structure of a text and how you can take that text structure and work within writing your own essay. So first thing to know that compare and contrast is a focus on the similarities and differences between two topics or ideas. Actually, it's not even two, it could be multiple topics and multiple ideas, but we're just focusing on two today. You can see this text structure in social studies, math, you see it in graphs, in pro-con list, newspapers and news sites, and sometimes even advertisements.
All right, look, let's get logical about this, okay? We'll make a list. Rachel and Julie, pros and cons. We'll put their names in bold with different fonts, and I can use different colors for each column.
Can't we just use a pen?
No, Amish boy.
All right, let's start with the cons, because they're more fun. Rachel first.
I don't know. I mean, all right, I guess you can say she's a little spoiled sometimes.
You could say that.
You know? I guess, sometimes she's a little ditzy, And I've seen her be a little too into her looks. And like Julie and I, we have a lot in common because we're both paleontologists, right? But I mean, Rachel's just a waitress.
Waitress. Got it. You guys want to play Doom? Or we can keep doing this. What else?
I don't know.
Her ankles are a little chubby.
Okay, let's do Julie. What's wrong with her?
She's not Rachel.
So here we've seen a movie showing comparison and contrast in action. So Ross is trying to figure out who to date, and Chandler, using his fancy new laptop, is going to make him a list. So there are two major comparisons made. One, Ross points out that Julie, quote, isn't Rachel. So he's comparing the two women. And then he also compares their professions. He says that Julie's job as a paleontologist is more of a pro than being a waitress. So how do you find compare and contrast in text? Well, you're going to look for those title words, the signpost words that we are looking for. Yet, while, contrast, like, nevertheless, alternately. There's some more, and we're going to look at those in our text. So here we have our comparison contrast text in action. Thousands of years ago, the native people of North America had to build their houses that fit their lives. One kind of house was a teepee. The Plains people lived in teepees. Teepees were easy to put up and take down. In fact, it only took about half an hour to set them up. This was perfect for the Plains people who spent their time hunting and following herds of animals. The Inuit, who lived in the cold Arctic region, spent most of the year living in igloos. Igloos were temporary homes like teepees. However, they were built for cold winter months, whereas a teepee could be used year-round. Both teepees and igloos had one main room that the family lived in, and usually made for a single family. Teepees and igloos were made from very different materials. Igloos were made from blocks of snow stacked on top of each other, while teepees were made from buffalo hide, tree bark, or grass. The shape of teepees and igloos was also different. Teepees were cone-shaped, using 3 or 4 poles for support. In contrast, igloos were dome-shaped. Now, I have gone ahead and color-coded this text for us. I've put our thesis statement in red, everything that has to do with teepees in orange, igloos in green, things in common in purple, and then those signal words in blue. So let's have a look at the signal words. Like, however, whereas, both, different, while, also different, in contrast. Now, these weren't on the list I just gave you, but you can see where they're useful. And sometimes putting in things that are similar and different are good signals for our readers. Now, if you were, say, to look at this paragraph and need to put it into a diagram that you as a reader could use, there's 2 ways to do that through a graphic organizer. 1, a Venn diagram, or 2, 3-column notes. A Venn diagram is 2 circles that show off the independent attributes of a writing and then the things that are similar. So you can see there, I've color-coded according to the article, the same way I did it previously. Teepees are in orange and igloos are in green. And then the attributes that both items have in common are in purple. Now, if you were doing this on your own, you would stick in the things in one circle that don't touch the other circle that are independent of each other. And then from there, you can kind of see and organize your thoughts. Now, we've been talking a lot about 3-column notes this year, and I thought it was a good idea to go back to it. So I've done the same organization color-wise that I've been doing with my Venn diagrams and with the paragraph. Orange for teepees, purple for both, igloos green. And you'll notice that I've got the same organization as the Venn diagram. I just found it easier to make sense in my mind. Logically, the things that are different are going to be the furthest apart, and the things that keep them common, they each have in common, that is, I put them in the center so it connects them. Now, you're wondering how to write this out yourself. Well, there are 2 types of compare and contrast essay organizations. The first is called block, and it has a 4 basic paragraph structure, although it could be done in the length of paragraphs could be different. Just like every other essay you're ever going to write, that first paragraph is going to be your introduction, and every introduction that you turn in has to have a thesis statement. And a strong thesis statement is going to state your purpose. Remember that you need to use formal language and tone, and always write in third person. So no, I believe that. More formal. So here's our example from our text. Thousands of years ago, the native people of North America had to build houses that fit their lives. Now in paragraphs 2 and 3, we're going to look at the topics independently. So paragraph 2 is only going to cover one topic. You're going to introduce it and give as much information about that topic in one paragraph. So if we were using our example paragraph and topic in the same format, but turning it into a block form organization, that first paragraph would only cover TPs. Paragraph 3 is going to cover our second topic, and it's going to just cover that, but it's going to give the exact same information that you presented on the first topic in the same order. And we're going to go into this in example in just a moment. Finally, paragraph 4 is always going to be your conclusion. Remember to restate your thesis and draw closing statements that will remind your readers of all the information they've learned. So, for example, a block essay in action would look like this. That first paragraph is going to contain our thesis, so there it is again. Paragraph 2 is only going to cover TPs. So, the 3 topics I've covered in paragraph 2 would be used by Plains Indians, easy to put up and take down, and it's a single family home. Paragraph 3 is going to cover igloos. Now, since I touched on the people who live in teepees in the first paragraph, in paragraph 3, the first point I have to touch on are what people live in igloos, and then how it was built, and then it's a single family home. Now, in your conclusion, you may point out the similarities and differences that you illustrated in your paragraphs. But remember, this block essay format is kind of allowing your reader to make connections on their own. So they are seeing the connections. Oh, I read about the Plains people living in teepees in the first paragraph, so now that I'm reading about the Inuit people living in igloos, I know that's going to be the first thing I'm going to read. They should always match up in the same organization. The other structural type that we could organize a compare and contrast essay is a point by point. Again, that first paragraph must be your introduction, and it must have a strong formal language and tone thesis statement. Remember also it needs to be in third person. Now, when we looked at block, they went by each individual topic. Instead, here we're going to look at an independent element. So for paragraph 2, we're going to look at one difference or one similarity. You're going to present both sides equally, but only present things that tie in to that topic. The same is going to go for paragraph 3. Maybe you're going to do a 4 and a 5 also. That's fine. Just make sure you're hitting on an equally presented difference or similarity. And then, of course, to wrap it up, we're going to restate our thesis and drawing closing statements in our conclusion paragraph. So if we were looking at this point-by-point essay structure for teepees and igloos, that first paragraph is going to hold our strong thesis, and there it is in bright red. Paragraph 2, let's say we're going to go over building materials. So you'll see the color coding here is the same way it was when the essay was first presented to us. Teepees are made from buffalo hide, bark, and grass. Igloos are made out of snow blocks. Everything there is going to show the difference through the building materials. Paragraph 3, I'm going to come in with a strong topic sentence about temporary housing, and I'm going to present everything I know about temporary housing and to do with these two types of housing. Teepees are going to lead us off, followed by igloos, and then I'm going to pull in a similarity because both types of constructions are single-family homes. If you're thinking, wait, that doesn't make sense. Remember that my topic there is temporary houses, and I didn't say that I needed to focus on just the differences there, just on that topic. So I'm drawing them all in to make a strong conclusion. And again, you'll notice that those things don't intersect the way they did with block. They're independent and they're working within each topic. We're going to finish ours out with, again, a strong conclusion. Be sure to tie that back to your thesis. If you have other questions about how to use Graphic Organizer or organization of a compare and contrast essay, how to read or write it, you should contact your teacher because they are the expert on this. Thanks again.